One country attempting to negotiate a last-minute deal with Washington over the looming tariffs is South Africa. The country is facing 30% tariffs on its exports to the United States. The South African government says it is finalizing a package to support companies that will be affected. In anticipation of the tariffs, South Africa's central bank revised the country's annual growth forecast down from 1.2% to 1%. The country's largest trade union warned of potential job losses. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa said his government is holding intensive talks with the Trump administration.
Many of our companies deal with the United States customers. We export vehicles, we export steel and aluminium, we export citrus. So we've got to engage with them and find a way to reach a settlement. So within the window that's still open, we're hoping that we will find a way to settle this matter. So intensive negotiations are now underway.
Our coverage continues now with our correspondent Diane Hawker. She is in Johannesburg for us tonight. Diane, good to see you. What more can you tell us about the South African government's response to the tariffs?
Well, Brent, the South African government has essentially a twofold approach. One part of it is, as mentioned there by President Ramaphosa, to continue negotiating with the U.S. The second part of it is to pivot. And the South African government has announced that it's opened up an export help desk for different South African businesses to advise them on how they can start looking at other markets. Now, in different industries, there are sectors that have kind of specifically focused on different regions. For example, with the citrus sector, in one part of the country, in Limpopo, they would have focused on the European market, whereas in the Western Cape, there's a big focus on the US market. And that is the kind of industry that would need to start looking at that pivot position to see if it can start moving its products to other markets, either to Europe or elsewhere. And the government is saying that with the help of this desk, different businesses will be able to get advice on what are the requirements of these different markets, are there different shipping routes, all kinds of different things to help the businesses and essentially to try and save jobs. You'll know, Brent, that unemployment is a really big issue here in South Africa, and it's really important that there is a focus on jobs at this stage. Also mentioning that the GDP growth has been revised down. So there's really a lot of effort to try and retain the jobs that exist and also see if there's any opportunities to grow jobs in any additional sectors, Brent.
Yeah. Speaking of jobs, I mean, one of the hardest hit sectors is South Africa's automotive industry. It employs 115,000 people and now faces major job losses. Let's take a look at a report that you've just filed.
These girls arrive at Sipho Baitji's company unpainted. The work of making them ready for cars has a certain rhythm that he likes. His team inspects, cleans, spray paints, and then polishes them. It's a precise operation and offered dependable work for his 60 employees, at least until Donald Trump announced new tariffs on vehicle imports to the United States. These spray-painted grills are destined for the Ford assembly line. But this company says that ever since US President Donald Trump started talking about increasing tariffs, they've seen a decrease in the amount of available work. It's just one of the signs of how decisions made in Washington are affecting small businesses here in South Africa. Although Ford South Africa doesn't export to the US, the company and its suppliers are feeling the global impact of Trump's policy.
If one neighbor is suffering, obviously it's not going to be able to buy the vehicles. So what is happening now is that we supply the unit 4,000 units. That is the cars they build. So out of those cars, we've reduced now to 2,500 units a month. So that makes a huge difference. It impacts us in terms of the cash. It impacts now we have to retrench. That's what it does, this tariff directly. That is a direct impact on us.
Baitji is the provincial chairman of the National Association of Automotive Component and Allied Manufacturers. He says the group is looking for non-American alternatives.
As I'm talking to you right now, we are busy communicating with the other countries. Now we're no longer in an environment where we have to sit and relax. We're now in an environment where we have to be proactive and seek other partners who wants to come into to the African continent.
As well as Ford, BMW, Toyota and Mercedes-Benz also have production facilities in South Africa. The National Association of Automobile Manufacturers says sales to non-American markets are up, but this doesn't cover the more than 70% drop in US sales created by the new tariffs.
And markets like the European Union continue to take up our vehicles, growing by 23% year on year. And of course, we had the African region as well grow by 22%. So you see that there is that strategic pivot. But of course, the conversation then continues to be the nature of vehicles that we were sending to the US. Can they be easily absorbed in this market? Because obviously, there is diversity of vehicles that we continue to send to the different regions.
Despite worrying about how to keep his business going, Baiki says he sees light at the end of the Trump tariff tunnel.
My dream is to build cars in the end of the day. So I have to continue with that dream. I cannot give up now because of one person of one country.
He says local parts producers should point their trucks north to the rest of the African continent if they are to survive the remainder of Trump's term.
Diane, we know that this is not just about the auto industry. There are other industries affected here. Talk to me about those and what is the expected fallout?
Absolutely, Brent. For example, the steel industry here in South Africa is expected to also suffer as a result of these tariffs. The agricultural sector is also one that has quite a large market in the US, selling different products like macadamia nuts, citrus, and wine and other types of fruit to the US. And I would say that in these different sectors, there is quite a lot of anxiety. For example, the Citrus Growers Association of South Africa has said that there really is an urgent need, a time-dependent need for these negotiations to continue because they literally have a stock sitting in different units, freezers and storage units at the moment expected to go to the US. And they've indicated that a lot of times the deals that they have are negotiated far in advance, as much as a year in advance. So with these sudden changes taking place as a result of the Trump administration, it really does make it difficult for them to forecast and plan for the future and might also leave them with a stock that is unable or that goes off or that rots in fridges.
You know, Diane, we've talked many times about the importance of the South African economy for the greater Southern African economic future. How does South Africa's situation compare to its neighbors?
Well, at the moment, South Africa is looking much worse than many of its neighbors. Many of the African countries actually got a bit of a reprieve. So Zimbabwe, for example, have got a 15% tariff. Not great for Zimbabwe, but less than the 30% put in place for South Africa. Namibia also sitting with a 15% tariff. Lesotho definitely will be having a sigh of relief there because they had initially been forecast to have the highest tariff. With the initial announcement in April, it was meant to be as much as 50%, and they've now come down to 15%. But the reality is that South Africa does also support a lot of the other countries in terms of jobs and also in a way being a shipping hub. So there will still be an impact on these other countries unless they can find ways to, divert bringing their products into South Africa completely. And I think that's where things become tricky because really everything is quite interconnected and has been interconnected for quite some time. And as Sipho Baiki, who was in that piece, pointed out to me when I interviewed him this week, he said that a lot of these industries operate as a circle, as a group, and now that circle is broken and they'll have to find a new way to reconnect things to the best way that they can going forward.
Okay, DW correspondent Diane Hawker. Diane, excellent reporting tonight. Thank you.